Well, we are just going to have more fun than you can stand. Nobody's allowed to go to sleep during any of this lesson, I'm telling you. So,
Save it for the sermon.
Amen. um, so we've been grinding along in Daniel, and Wes is going to attempt 3 chapters in the next 45 minutes. So Daniel's been getting progressively broader prophecies and more detail. And chapter 10 is going to introduce him to what's coming in chapter 11 and 12. And they are by far the furthest reaching and most intense prophecies that he's ever gotten or will get. You'll understand more as we read through. There'll be a lot of reading today. I see him looking at his Bible. By any chance, did you look at 2 Thessalonians 2:4, or could you look that up for us? We ended the class with it last week, and I want to start the class with it this week. 2 Thessalonians 2:4.
Who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God.
Now, what version is that?
This is ESV.
ESV?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Want a different one?
No, all right, no, that's fine. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to read NIV. And the NIV, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, says he will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. And as we said last week, this is his end goal. This has always been what Satan wanted to do. Oh, speaking of that, no. I'll edit that part out, trust me. But it's always been Satan's goal to put himself over God and to show God that he's better than God. I can't even fathom. I can't fathom. On the other hand, if you look around the world today, you will find people who think like this. Who needs God? I'm better than that. That's for weak people. You know, they discount God in so many different ways. But Satan's end goal is 2 Thessalonians 2:4, to set himself up as God, to be worshipped as God, and to be exalted in the temple. So just keep that in the back of your mind for a minute. Now we got to lay a little groundwork here. We talked about this last week. Alexander the Great was seen as a horn. In fact, we had the Medes and the Persians first. The Medes fell, the Persians got strong, then the Medes fell, and along came, I think he was called a goat, I don't remember, but along came Alexander the Great. And 4 smaller horns came on after Alexander the Great. And I want you to notice that Alexander the Great only lived 13 years and died at, I think he was 33, I think. I should have looked that up. I think he was around 33 or so. He had no hairs. He was bald as all get out. No, he had he had no one to inherit whatever it was he would have passed on. So they divided his kingdom up into 4 generals, the Ptolemaic generals, Seleucids, and then the 2 others, which they're like they ruled the Asian continent and stuff like that. One was Asia, one was Europe or something. But of the 4, the 2 that interest us is the Ptolemaic Ptolemy and his descendants, and then Seleucid and his descendants. And Ptolemy got Egypt, North Africa, basically. Egypt is what it says, but we'll also know later when the Romans come down. Trivia question, history bonus point. Where did the name Africa come from? Why is the continent called Africa? Big bonus points if you know this answer, by the way. I learned this years ago. I thought, how could you forget once you learn it? Roman general named Africanus captured the continent. And that's where it got, okay, never mind. I thought it was fascinating. Anyway, so we go across the troublemakers all appear to be across the north of Africa. Anything that's along the Mediterranean, Libya, Algeria, Egypt, as you come across there. But Egypt was the empire at the time. And when the Greeks captured it, uh, assimilated it into their empire, Ptolemy went down and became the first sort of king of Egypt. Meanwhile, up north, the Seleucids, they had a variety of people, and the one that we're most familiar with, the last Seleucid general, was Antiochus Epiphanes, something or other, fifth or fourth, but Antiochus Epiphanes. And he's the guy that went in, put the pig's blood on the altar, and just desecrated all of it, which got two brothers all upset. Come on. Well, we've done this how many times now?
Yes,
The Maccabean brothers. And that caused the Maccabean revolt. And we get Hanukkah. I get stuck on all that. We'll be here all day. So we have the Ptolemies over here, Egypt, and so on. And then Syria, Lebanon, what they call the Levant, Israel, Jordan, all that big area right in there. That whole region was the Seleucids. So just keep that in the back of your mind. We'll see that in a second. We're going to read about in the third year, Daniel 10, I believe it starts. Is it Daniel 10 starts out in the third year of Cyrus. Okay, that's 536 BC. So show you a couple things today that happened to you if you just read your Bible. First is, it says in the third year of the reign of Cyrus or something like that. Unless you stop and go look that up, you have no idea when that was or why it's even important for that matter. And I think it's in chapter 11. It starts out in the first year of Darius. Well, Darius was the guy who, that was Daniel in the lion's den and the fiery furnace and all that stuff. So if we had the background, you understand the passage better. Anyway, Cyrus, 536, okay? Why is that important? Let's back up. 604 is when Daniel was hauled off to Babylon as a young man. We don't know what his age was, 14, 16, 17, take your pick. But we do know if we fast forward to 536, Daniel is now 70 years older than he was when he was taken captive. So this guy is 85 or more. We don't know, 82, 80, pick a number. Actually, we probably do know. If I looked it up, we have the year he died. You could back into it. Anyway, he's up there, quite old. So I want to keep all this in mind as we get through 10, 11, and 10 and 11 mostly, which actually the chapters are not that long. So pass over all this. Oh, good. Okay. So we're in chapter 10, and I'm simply going to read it to you. We're going to stop along the way a little bit. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, and again, Persian defeated the Medes. Both of them defeated the Babylonians, and the Babylonians defeated the Assyrians. And now we're all the way back when we started all of our apologetic studies. Anyway, Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation is given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. Its message was true and concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. At that time, now watch this. At that time, Daniel mourned for 3 weeks. So he was in a period of mourning or fasting, if you will. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine, touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over. Well, isn't that nice? And most people would just keep reading. We can learn so much from understanding things like this, to take a breath and go, well, wait a minute. So what does that mean? How could we interpret verse 3 a little differently? How could we back more knowledge out of that verse than you see on its face? All right.
Well, he was denying himself to try to understand more of God.
Yes, he was certainly, that's correct. He was in a spiritual frame of mind, if you will. But I'm looking for something even, I shouldn't say deeper than that. What does this tell you about life in those days? If he wasn't doing this, what would he be doing? It says he ate no choice food, no meat, no wine, touched his lips, no lotions. So if he wasn't doing this, what would happen? He was a meat eater who drank wine with his food, used lotions, perfumes, aftershave, Old Spice, Canoe, who knows? I mean, they were all about odors back then, or scents, I guess is a better way to put it. Lots of incense was used all over the place. Oils and perfumes were a big deal, and it continued to be. But this is all the way back. This is 500-600 years before the time of Christ. They're eating meat, they're drinking wine, and this is Daniel now. He's not living like the current Catholics are in the headlines right now. He's not living like a priest or a monk. No wine, no this, no that. We tend to think, you read through this, you're not actually trying to think of what it was. Daniel was one of the members of the royal party. He would have had the finest clothing. He would have eaten the best that there was to eat in that day. The same with their wine, the same with the perfumes or whatever it was that he put on. Lotions. Who would even think of lotions? The Egyptians, of course, were big on all of that as well. How far back does wine go? Oh, Bible trivia question for you. At least to know, yeah. Yeah, and in fact, it occurred to me that it had to have been before Noah, because Noah knew, he knew wine, he knew how to grow a vine and make wine. And oh, by the way, I think the first fruit you can get off of a vine is at least 5 years, and I think they go longer before you really start making wine off a vine. So, in fact, I think that if I remember right, in Genesis, the story is he planted a vine when they came off the ark, if I remember right. It wasn't that he had 22 casks of the finest Cabernet up on the upper deck or something. Yeah. But yeah, wine goes back almost forever. I mean, it's absolutely incredible how far back it goes. Anyway, we digress. I just wanted you to understand here, 500 years, 600 years before Christ, people are still people. When I was a kid, we got this whole Stone Age nonsense and how stupid man was back then. And he couldn't speak and he couldn't talk and, and drag his woman home and all that. I don't know where they get that junk from. That's absolute. If you get into anthropology, man has been speaking since the beginning. That maybe you don't understand him, but man's been speaking. Communication's a big deal even back then. What's transpired over time isn't that man's gotten better. The tools have. We're as dumb and ignorant as the day is long. We'll sin in a heartbeat. We're as arrogant as all of it. And so here's Daniel up in his chamber, if you will, fine linen, all of this. No, he leaves that surrounding. He puts all of that behind for 3 weeks, and we find him, he's down in the, if I remember right, we're going to see in a second, he's down at a river. Daniel didn't get caught up in the trappings of his office. The fine food, the fine wine, the perfumes, the lotions, all of that. He didn't get, it was nice that it had it around, but he didn't get caught up in it all. He was after God's own heart from the beginning. So it says that on the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, that he was down at the Tigris, which makes sense since the Tigris runs, we talked about this, I drew a little map up here. Right through the middle of Babylon, right? No, is that Euphrates? Euphrates. Tigris, we're over in the Persian Empire. Sorry, the Tigris runs over there. It made sense because the Tigris River would be associated with the Persian Empire. In any case, he's down there. And I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning. His eyes were flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. And I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. Now, point out something right here. That phrase is the biggest reason that Orthodox Jews do not consider Daniel a prophet. Did you know that? Because the prophet has to have witnesses. And if nobody saw it, then how do we know it's a prophecy? Part of that makes a little bit of sense. The Mormons follow a guy who had a vision, a prophecy, if you will, wrote it down on a bunch of gold tablets, and then nobody can find the tablets, nor saw the vision, nor no witnesses. But in Daniel's case, plenty of things happened to Daniel that tell us he was a prophet of God. But the Jews will use this to discount all of his prophecies. It's interesting. Okay, I was the only one who saw the vision. Those who were with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. So I was left alone, gazing at this great vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. So there was something going on in the heavenly realms where this angel, this messenger that's talking to Daniel, got caught up in it and couldn't get his mission accomplished. So Michael, the archangel, came down, gave him a hand, and this angel continued on to Daniel. We've said this before. We're physical. We're physical people. We see physical. We don't realize there is a whole spiritual world existing right around us. Jacob's ladder saw the angels coming and going from heaven. There's activity all the time. It's not like God's just sitting still. And this is a good example of it. So now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future. For the vision concerns a time yet to come. Now we're going to see an interesting thing in this vision. To Daniel, everything this person is going to pass on to them, this messenger, it is the future. But some of this future is our past. And that's what makes reading the next two chapters kind of interesting. While he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face toward the ground and was speechless. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. And I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I feel very weak. How can I, your servant, talk with you? My strength is gone and I can hardly breathe. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid. You are highly esteemed. Peace. Be strong now. Be strong. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, Speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. So he said, Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. So this guy is going to go back and cause the fall of the Persian Empire, which will allow the Greek Empire to really come into fruition. But first, I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. So he's already told him something right there. I'm going back and going to defeat the Persian being, whatever it is that he's wrestling with, and a Greek one's coming. So he already's got a little piece of prophecy just right there. So now we're going to flip over to chapter 11. And it gets really interesting, and this is considered the most detailed prophecy in the Bible. It's incredible. And this one says, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my hand to support and protect him. Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and then a 4th who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king will arise, who will rule with great power and do as he pleases. After he has arisen, his empire will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 winds of heaven. It will not go to his descendants, because he didn't have any, That's not in the Bible. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to others. So you figured out who that is now? Those first few verses? That's Alexander the Great and his empire at the time. Now we're going to go to verse, I think I put these up here. Yeah. If you didn't get it, I have it right up there. Now we're going to read verse 5 to 9. The king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he and will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years, they will become allies. The daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north to make an alliance, but she will not retain her power, and he and his power will not last. In those days, she will be betrayed together with her royal escort and her father and the one who supported her. I mean, specifics. One from her family line will arise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north and enter his fortress. He will fight against them and be victorious. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, and their valuable articles of silver and gold and carry them off to Egypt. For some years, he will leave the king of the north alone. Then the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will retreat to his own country. Sounds like a giant game of Risk. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army, which will sweep on like an irresistible flood and carry the battle as far as his fortress. Then the king of the south will march out in a rage and fight against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but it will be defeated. When the army is carried off, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousands, yet he will not remain triumphant. For the king of the north will muster another army larger than the first, and after several years, he will advance with a huge army, fully equipped. Sounds like a Cecil B. DeMille's movie. In those times, many will rise against the king of the south. Those who are violent among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. Then the king of the north will come and build up siege ramps and will capture a fortified city. The forces of the south will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have strength to stand. The invader will do as he pleases. No one will be able to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. And of course, the beautiful land now, that's Israel. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom and will make an alliance with the king of the south. So now we have the north and the south joining in an alliance. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom. But his plans will not succeed. Well, these guys are, or help him. Then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them, but a commander will put an end to his insolence and will turn his insolence back on him. And after this, he will turn back toward the fortress of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. Almost there. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and a prince of the covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, and wealth among his followers. He will plot the overthrow of fortresses, but only for a time. With a large army, he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south. The king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army, but he will not be able to stand because of the plots devised against him. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other. I think this is going on right now, isn't it? But to no avail, because an end will still come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. This would be anyone who, the Jews, any of us except Christ and so on. He will take action against it and then return to his own country. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from what it was before. Ships of the western coastlands will oppose him, and he will lose heart, and he will turn back and vent his fury against the holy covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. I think we're just about there. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by a sword or be burned or captured or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end, for it would still come at the appointed time. The king will do as he pleases. So we're going to stop at verse 36 a second. Everything up to verse 36 has already happened, if you didn't know. And rather than go through, because I want to focus on this other part. Come on. There we go. So verses 5, yeah. So verses 5 to 9 are the Seleucids. And this is all about infighting among them and the followers of Ptolemy. And these guys are in Egypt. And the peace treaty that gets made is between them and the Seleucids. And then they were all lying to each other anyway, deceitful. They don't honor the peace treaty. Boy, have we had a few peace treaties. Egypt, the Middle East, Israel, take your pick, any of those. But that's what that is. 10 to 20, I believe, is Antiochus. Yeah. So we have two Antiochuses, or is that Antiochidai or something? I don't know. Your first one is called Antiochus the Great. And that's what those verses are. And then when he falls, we get Epiphanes. Is it the fourth, Bill?
I think.
Well, it's Epiphanes. It's Antiochus Epiphanes. That's all I care about. This is the dude that spills pig blood on the desolation, so on and so on. And eventually, they're all defeated by the Romans. Although what the Romans do with the Greek empire, it's interesting. They absorb it into the kingdom. The gods that the Greeks had, the Romans adopt. Only they'll change, I don't know, Mars to Zeus, I think is one of they take the Greek gods, give them Roman names, keep the statues, so on and so on. And the Hellenistic period begins, and life is wonderful. Greek becomes the language of the day. The lingua franca, I believe is the correct term, becomes a language of the day, because the Romans, who wants to speak Latin except for the priests in 325 AD? But Latin was meant as an official language of Rome, just like you'll read legal documents where they come up with the phrasing and everything, and live beyond me. Well, the Romans used Latin for the official sounding things, and then they had a number of languages they would use, and eventually they went with Greek. Greek becomes the language of the day. And then we come over to 36. Now, I have something I'll try to read here real quick. I know I brought it with me. No, I'll pass on that. There's a lot of good stuff you can get out there on what we just read. But essentially it's about the two successors to Alexander the Great, and ruling. They were trying to rule Egypt, and then this whole along the Mediterranean coast where the Holy Land is, and so on. And the problem was both of them wanted to be the king. So there was this constant king of the north came down, battle, battle, battle. He wins, hauls everything up to the king of the south, builds another army. He goes up and battle, 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 and hauls all, back and forth. And the wives and the daughters given in marriage and all this. But what's fascinating is we're back here. I put it up there somewhere. There we are. He's getting this at 536 BC. These things don't begin to happen until 323. So a couple of hundred years in advance. And it's so detailed. It's one of the things Bible critics hold up as why the Bible's not the Bible. Because you couldn't possibly have told Daniel this 200 years earlier with this much detail and have it all happen exactly as it says. So therefore, you waited till after all that stuff, and then you wrote this like it was a prophecy. That's a common criticism of fulfilled prophecy in the Bible. And there's several of them, but this is one of the best examples of there's no way he knew all this level of the daughter went up and he married this and they had a peace treaty they broke and blah, blah, blah. And it's exactly the way it's in Daniel's prophecy is what played out in history. Well, then we come to verse 36. Get this in there. Now, this is actually the part that should interest us the most. I'm allergic to Sunday school or something. I don't know what the dickens. I go all week, I'm fine. I come in the building and it's like snivel, snivel, snivel. Anyhow, from verse 36 on into chapter 12, this is going to give us insight that we probably didn't have before. And it's going to give us insight that when we get into actually looking at the book of Revelation, is just all going to integrate perfectly. This is insight that the disciples of Christ would have had. Now, did they understand it? No, probably not. But they had this insight before Christ ever started to talk to them about his return. So now we're in verse 36. And it says, the king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself about every god. We are now talking about the Antichrist. He will magnify himself above every god. What did we say at the beginning? 2 Thessalonians 2:4. His goal is magnify himself above God. He will magnify himself above every god. So Muslim, ancestor worship, whatever you hold up as a god, he's going to say, I'm over all that stuff. That's because of me, and they all listen to me, or whatever. Every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. And this is where the blasphemy just goes nuts. He will be successful, is what it starts to say next. Everybody, or a large percentage of the population of the world at the time, is going to believe him. Because the world's a mess. Nobody can fix it. They keep making it messier. And nobody wants to turn to Christ to fix the mess. No, that's not the end. Don't. Somebody's business is failing. You walk in there and say, the answer is Christ could turn this around. They're going to just laugh you right out of the. So this was the problem. They were looking for an answer that wasn't Christ, and here comes this guy. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. And that's the other thing. We serve a God whose word is his word. And he says, I'm going to do something. He's not, and what is it? He's not slow, he's patient. But he does it. What is determined must take place. He will show no regard, this is Antichrist, he will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women. No regard for his ancestors or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, or I think of it as power, strength, that kind of thing, which is the opposite of how he got into power. He didn't use power and strength to get into power, but he's going to honor that god. A god unknown to his ancestors he will honor with gold and silver, precious stones, and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god. This is this fortress god he's worshiping, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the land at a price. So He's going to come to power subtly behind the scenes, but then when he has power, Hitler was like that. He kind of worked behind the scenes, and then when he had the power, Hitler was a totally different person from that point. This guy's going to put Hitler to shame, but that's the guy. He's working in the background, working in the background. And then he gets to where he wants to be. Boom! Now he takes control of everything, or at least he tries to. And you can see how he works in today's political environment. Because what's he going to do to keep people who, he says he likes people that support him. What do you do if you like people that support you in powerful positions? What do you do as a powerful person?
You give them the plum choice positions.
Yeah, and you invite them to all your parties. I mean, that you really want to knock somebody. Don't invite somebody who thinks they're important and they don't get invited to the premier so and so's visit to the White House or something. Yeah, this guy's cunning. He's a liar. He's like intrigue, all of this, and he's going to offer you defeated those people for me. I'm going to give you France, or something. I'm going to give you all the shipping lanes. Commerce is a big part of this. We get into Revelation, we're going to talk about 2 Babylons, and one of them is commerce. And he'll give shipping lanes to somebody. He'll give, whatever that happens to be. So he gives these gifts and land. And at the time of the end of the king of the south, at the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, which is, of course, Israel. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. AME? We talked about that, right? We all know. So that's Jordan. So Jordan's not going to get caught up in this, at least according to this anyway. They will be delivered from his hand, which again explains why a lot of people believe when the Jews flee out of Israel, and again, if you'd been over there, it's easier to understand. Jerusalem's up on the side of Mount Moriah, top of the mountain. You have to come down that to get to sea level, obviously. So if you're fleeing the city, and they've got a big major highway that comes down that way, you're coming down that route, and we know from our other studies, they're going to cross the other side of the Dead Sea into, I think it's Moab, but into Jordan and hide, Petra, that sort of thing. We know afterward, they're going to be all these dead they got to bury. They bury them in southern Jordan. So Jordan plays quite a role in all of this, and the apparently support the Jews migrating there during this time. Let's see, I keep going. Okay. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and the Cushites. So these are the tribes that lived at you want to say the top of Africa, northern Africa. But reports from the east and the north. So remember, we had our little map up here. If this is Israel, the east is over here. Now this is Saudi Arabia, Arab Emirate, the Emirates, and Jordan, of course, and so on. And then the north is anything that you want it to be. And you can find a translation that calls it everything from Russia all the way down through Turkey. But in any case, reports from the east and the north are going to alarm him. Now, part of the problem that he's got is his back is against the sea, right? This is the Med. He's sitting in this narrow area that borders the Med. This, whatever is coming from the east this way. And the north, it could be any. It could be the Chinese coming down, could be the Russian, the Battle of Armageddon. We'll get into all that eventually. People think he's the king of the world, but he has all kinds of problems being the king of the world because the followers of Satan are just as treacherous as Satan. You can't be trusted. Their word's not their word, and so on. And all of them get greedy. And there's the number of theories I've read about why this great battle comes about in Armageddon. One of them is the last of the oil is discovered in Israel. The oil of Asher, apparently. That's going to be one. I think the reason they're coming to Israel is that's where the Antichrist is. And if you're going to have battle with him, that's where you're going to go. Anyway, the kings of the north and the east give him cause for concern. He will, reports that Eastnor will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. This now we have to be at the end of the Great Tribulation period that lasts 6 months. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful, he's setting up his kingdom. He's moved his kingdom now to Jerusalem and the temple, the holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. Okay, now we're going to flip over to 12. This is a short one. At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. This is Michael the archangel. There will be a time of distress such as not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, this would be in this case the Jews, everyone whose name is found written in the book, our names are in there. And as the fellow Wednesday's lunch pointed out, they never get erased. Once they're in there, you're in there. So, but at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of this scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase knowledge. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on this bank of the river and one on the opposite. One of them said to the man clothed in linen who was above the waters, "How long will it be before these things are fulfilled?" The man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river lifted his right hand and his left hand toward heaven, and I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, "It will be for a time, times, and a half time." Do we remember that? How long is that? 3.5 years. I think we even have that up here, don't we? Yeah. Time, and a half time, 3.5 years. When the power of the holy people has been finally broken, all these things will be completed. So we're in the tribulation period. I heard, but I did not understand, and so I asked my Lord, "What will the outcome of all this be?" He replied, "Go your way, Daniel, because the words are rolled up and sealed. The words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked." Is that not an amen? Boy. None of the wicked will understand. That's another reason you can't get anybody to believe that Christ is coming. But those who are wise will understand. From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished, and get this, the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. So the thing I want you to see here is a lot of people want to put the abomination that causes desolation back with Epiphanes over there. That was an abomination, but this is what we're talking about here. This is huge. And when you get in, I don't think it tells you here, we'll talk about it in a second. From the time daily sacrifice, the abomination causes desolation is set up, there'll be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of 1,335 days. We'll talk about both these in a second. As for you, go your way to the end, you will rest, and then at the end of the days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance. And aren't we all looking forward to that day? So let's talk about the abomination for a second. We're going to study it pretty good later. Antichrist comes along, and the false prophet, of course, tails along with him, because you get religion on one side and power on the other. And he comes along, and in the temple, they set an image up of this guy. And I believe it says, again, I should have looked this up, but I believe it says the false prophet causes the image to speak and do other things. That's the abomination. And what's going to happen, of course, is this thing is going to spew out all kinds of junk about God and how the Antichrist is the real God and how stupid you all have been for believing all this other junk. And I mean, it's just going to spew blasphemy like there's no tomorrow. And the false prophet, he does one other thing when this image is set up. The one thing that drives the whole country, and you talk end time to anybody, this is the first thing they all bring up. What does he do? Abomination speaks, they all start to worship the Antichrist. And what's the decree? This is when the mark of the beast happens. And if you don't have the mark of the beast, then we'll get into all that. Eventually, I'll tell you what that means, by the way. If you don't have the mark of the beast, you're not going to trade. You can't have a job. Your kids can't go to school. You name it. Nothing in the kingdom if you don't have the mark of the beast. This is what happens at the end of this when they put this image up, and it sort of, I don't think the Bible says comes to light, but we'll see when we get there. But it becomes an active thing, and the false prophet uses it. See, this is who we're going to worship now. That's the Antichrist. Here's his image, right? And oh, by the way, you got to have a mark of the beast. And we'll get to all of that soon. But much of this was prophesied before the time of the apostles, before Christ's disciples even started following Christ. And you can see as we go through here, we're going to do, next week we'll do Zechariah. You can see as we go through here why the Jews are waiting for the Messiah. All this prophecy that's still to come that we've already read, and we'll read some more yet, the Messiah is going to come and put a stop to all of that. And well, the Jews just, and when Christ comes, they can't believe it's Christ. Oh, come on, carpenter's son, give me a break, 1,000 reasons why they don't believe he's the Messiah. They ignore the prophecies in the Old Testament that point to the Messiah, hung on a tree and so on and so on. No, not our Messiah is going to come on a horse, or I think it's a donkey, going to come on a white donkey, ride through the gate, and blah, blah, blah. Well, he already did that, but they didn't believe that either. But so the Jews are still looking forward. The apostles are sitting there. They're looking forward too. And Christ says, 3 days, this temple will be destroyed. In 3 days, it'll rise up again. They were thinking the temple. And in 70 AD, it was destroyed. Now, boy, if you're a disciple, you're thinking, okay, set your watch. We got 3 days. Set your sundial. We got 3 days. Get Julius in here to make me a calendar. You probably don't know what that one is. Julian calendar. But when Christ walked the face of the earth, they didn't have calendars. Now, I'm with a group, maybe I've told you the story before. I'm with a group Dr. Collins is leading through Israel. And he's warning everybody, you get into these antiquity shops to buy souvenirs and things, be very careful. Call me, have me come down. You just won't believe what people will buy. And he said, I had a tour group, a couple of groups back, which would have been 3-4 years before this. And this guy, who thought he was just the smartest guy in the world, Americans, gets on the bus. Now you got Dr. Collins, just a wealth of knowledge on all this. I got one over on them. Look what I got. I got a coin of Julius Caesar, and you know it's him because it's got 2 BC on the back. Well, there was no BC AD back then. They didn't know any of that stuff. Coins back then had no date. They had maybe an inscription and an image of the Caesar or something. But there was no AD BC to start with. They're crazy. Anyway, so that's going to end our thing in Daniel. We're learning things as we go, and we're building a foundation so that when we open up Revelation 1:1 and start reading, God's just going to open your eyes to things you'd never seen before when you read Revelation. So all excited about it. I think we've got a couple more. We're going to do Zechariah next. Oh, love Zechariah. And then I think I've got, is it Malachi? see what else is coming here. Yeah. And then Malachi, I think, is the last in the Old Testament, if I remember right. Yes. So we got Zechariah and Malachi. We ought to be done 6-7 months from now with that. I'm actually hoping a couple of weeks so we can keep moving. It's cool though. I think, the other thing about this kind of a study, if you were just doing end time, you have no idea that any of this existed in the Old Testament. And it's marvelous to start reading things in the Old Testament that you can identify with, and how God's word is just fully integrated and solid as a rock. Was it chapter 6 of Ephesians, shod in the armor of God and so on, and it says, have your feet shod in the gospel, which is that there is redemption of sin through Christ's blood. I just think it's marvelous. And the more comfortable we get with the whole Bible and not just our favorite book, whether it's Revelation or Philippians or Psalms or whatever book you like, if you can just get into the whole Bible, it does something for your faith. It's incredible. Okay, so that's going to end our study on Daniel this week. Let's close with a word of prayer.